Alright, so moving on to the brake controller installation on the 2020 Jeep Gladiator. We've got our Tekonsha P3 mounted up here on the Pro Clip USA mount. That is 100% custom special done by me. I like this up here though. Seems to be in a good manageable location for the times when you do need to get to it. I can see it real well, which I like. I like that better than the knee bolster smasher. So what I got to do is I got to take the adapter harness, and we got to get the adapter harness from the back of the brake controller, obviously, down to the factory wiring connector, which is behind the speaker. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my adapter harness from this end, and I'm just going to put a little split in this bulb seal, which will hold the wire harness against the dash. But we're going to come down under, we're going to put a little split, and then the wire harness is going to come underneath this bulb seal. The wire harness will run down the bulb seal, and then it's going to go in where I have this piece of fishing wire. I got the fishing wire strung down through the dashboard. I've got this side panel removed, and here you can see that wire coming through. So due to the location, I'm gonna have to extend my adapter harness. So here's our adapter harness. I went with the it's a 3024-P. This is for a late model Ram pick-em-up truck. It has a built-in diode in it somewhere. I'm not sure where they put that to keep the brake controller from backfeeding the electronics in the Jeep's dashboard. Now, here's where it gets interesting. To use the late model Ram harness, you have to switch the black wire and the blue wire from this connector. They need to be swapped. So listen to me very clearly. This harness is already swapped. So if you're going to use my video as an example, don't flip-flop your harness back to where it was. Like I said, when this comes out of the package, the blue will be here and the black will be here. So anyways, enough of that. We got that sorted out. This one's already wire swapped. Now, the proper harness for a Jeep Gladiator from Tekonsha is a 3073-P, I believe it is. They're constantly on back order, and they've quadrupled the price of them. This is a $25 adapter harness. And I was just looking a minute ago, and the 3073-P on eTrailer was going for $107, which is ridiculous. So I know this is common knowledge to some of you Gladiator guys out there that have already done brake controllers, but just throwing that out there. So I'm going to get this harness extended, and then we'll get it put in, and we'll take a look at it all put back together. Okay, quick little update here. I was getting ready to modify my wire harness, and I was sliding this snakeskin wire harness protector up towards the brake controller connector, and I just wanted to point out that this is where the diode is. It's in the red wire of the cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this guy off about right here, and then we're going to extend all the appropriate colors down to the connector that goes inside under the dash. Another quick note, if you're going to extend this, there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to make sure that you use the right size wire. You want to keep 12 gauge for the heavy wires that are actually feeding the brakes. These two smaller ones should be 14 gauge, but I think I'm just going to extend all four of them with 12 gauge because it's what I have. Okay, this is where we're at now. We have the wire harness extended. So what I ended up doing, like I think I mentioned earlier, is I put a split in this bulb seal, And I've already had several people ask me if this bulb seal is to keep the rain out, and it is not. All the weatherproofing is done by these seals down below here. So I'm going to tuck this up behind that bulb seal, probably put a little bit of inside out tape on there so that'll stay up when we put the windshield frame back up. And there's a gap in between the end of that seal and the plastic piece of dashboard right here. There's a gap in there for where the wires will fit through if anybody else wants to route it that way. I took this speaker out just because it's really easy and it gives you lots more room to fish that wire down through the frame. So this is the wire harness coming out from behind the dashboard. Got this side trim panel obviously off, and there's plenty of room back here for this harness. And then we have it coming down here, and here's the connector for it. And so I think I'll get my son to climb underneath the dashboard and plug this guy in, and it should be done. So it's not very hard to find the factory brake controller connector. It is just above the OBD2 connector underneath the dash. It's pretty tight under here, so I'm trying to do this with the camera on an extension. So this is the loop coming from the brake controller adapter harness. The excess I have just put in the kick panel, but it's really easy to find that connector. It just hurts kind of like hell to get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this speaker put back in, speaker grill put back on, get the windshield folded up, and plug it in, and then we'll show it powered up. Okay, so we started up the Jeep and the brake controller powered up. Of course, it's not going to do anything right now because it knows there's no trailer hooked up to it, but we'll get the trailer hooked up to it and get the power and boost levels set on it, hopefully sometime in the next week or so. I did verify that I could do the manual slider and we don't get any weird stuff going on the dashboard, which some people have reported with other wire harness adapters. So that is a good sign. We don't have the Christmas tree party lighting festival. All the panels fit back in properly, and the windshield frame closed up just fine, and I was able to keep this harness out of the weather strips that actually keep the weather out. Got this panel all done. So really the only thing that you can see that of the wiring is that short little bit of pigtail coming up to the controller itself. So I like this. I like where it's at. Like I said earlier, it's very visible. It's easy to reach. If it were like, let me see if I can put the cameras about where my head would be. If that was mounted to the knee bolster down there, you can't see it at all. You would have to literally be looking up through the spokes down there to see it. And the P3s are kind of big, so there's nowhere else really that you're going to put one in a Jeep. So, and this is, for all intents and purposes, is not permanent by any means. All of this can be taken off and put back to stock. And I'd imagine that little piece of weather stripping that I put the 1/2 inch slit in with the razor blade is probably not even that terribly expensive if it needed to be replaced. So stay tuned for some actual trailer towing videos with this thing, because we've got some hitch setup and actual RV towing that we're going to be doing. And our trailer is probably right around 6,000 pounds or so it should be kind of fun. We'll be doing that probably in the next week, getting that set up for our next trip. So if you guys have any questions on putting the brake controller in a Gladiator or a JL, feel free to put them in the comments and try and answer them best we can.